We're not live streaming. We're recording, and then we'll upload later because 5 a.m. is not the time that anyone's gonna be watching a live stream. So you know,
Well, it's like 8 o'clock at night over here. So
yeah, it's 5 a.m. here though. So it's not gonna. I'm not live streaming at 5 a.m. No one needs to know I'm awake right now. How are you?
I hear you.
So how are you doing? I should do the whole intro thing. Welcome back to another episode of the Comic Boys Show. I am your host, Khalil, and I am joined by I think I call you a good friend now, right? Yeah, I think we're good friends.
Yep.
Morgan Cobbs of Cobbs Corner. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing great. Doing great. Rananim, everybody. I'm out here coming to you live from the Cobbs Corner podcast.
Uh-oh. Mm-mm.
Zoom
Yep,
recording. All right.
we're good.
Yes, and we're back. So time lapse. For those of you who don't know, Rananim is the Chuukese greeting for hello. I'm here in the Federated States of Micronesia in the Pacific Ocean, and I'm on the island state of Chuuk, and so Chuukese is the local language. That's the for my listeners, for those of you who listen to Cobbs Corner podcast, which should be all of you. Um,
You should. Everyone
my
should listen to your amazing
I've
podcast. But
been starting the episodes with the greeting of Rananim, and so that just means hello. Welcome to. We're doing the American Film Institute's top 100 greatest movies of all time. So I'm currently reviewing that. So far, I've done Citizen Kane, Casablanca, Raging Bull, and I just uploaded today, the day that we're recording this episode, Singing in the Rain. Singing in the Rain. So as of the recording of this episode of Comic Boys podcast, those are the 4 episodes of AFI's top 100.
and if you would like real film talk, then go there because you do such a great job with them, and
Appreciate it.
I admire you greatly in that regard, and obviously I think you put out great content, so everyone should absolutely check you out. Obviously your thing will pop up on YouTube in like the eye in the corner, and it'll be in the description so people can go check you out. They can check you out there. So what have you
Much
been up
appreciated.
to? Because I don't actually remember what exactly you're doing. I know that you're doing smart people stuff, but beyond that, I don't know.
Smart people stuff. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I am a teacher at a high school out here. I teach math. I'm teaching algebra 2 and computer skills. Computer skills to the freshmen. I have a math review class with the sophomores, and then I have algebra 2 with the juniors. I also run the robotics club here on campus. The school is called Xavier High School. That's Xavier High School, Micronesia. It is a Catholic Jesuit school out here in the FSM. So I've been out here over 3 months. I came out here August the 7th, I think. For my listeners, you'll know that I had a special bonus episode, I think in either like late July or early August, saying how like this would be my last episode recorded in the United States for a while, and how the regular Friday uploads was going to be no more, and that I would be. And now I don't have an official uploading schedule because of my teaching schedule, and like my schedule week to week is different. So I've been uploading whenever I can. I've been still doing the talk time with Morgan Cobbs every other Sunday. I've been doing it every other Sunday, but 8 a.m. our time. So it's still probably 5 p.m. Saturday night your time.
Yeah,
because we're a day ahead of you. We're
right.
15 hours ahead.
15 hours, yeah. No, Morgan, not there. Oh, there you are. Still there? Okay, good. I thought I lost you.
And also the Wi-Fi at the school is limited. Flint.
So can you watch movies? I don't actually know the answer to this question because I know when we were talking initially, you're like, yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to really watch movies, which
Well, there is no movie theater on the island. I think the closest movie theater, I don't even know, maybe Palau or maybe Pohnpei. I have to take a plane to the nearest movie theater. I'm actually going to Guam for New Year's Eve, so I'll be in Guam for about 6 days, and I have been able to shout out to NordVPN. I've been able to download a VPN to mask my IP address. The only real streaming service they have out here, they have Netflix and they have Amazon Prime. Everything else I've had to have my
they have
IP
Disney out there.
address. Nope, no Disney Plus, no
That's
Max, no
crazy.
Paramount Plus. I have really, that's like the one streaming service that I've tried and just failed. And I've just given up on Paramount Plus out here. It's just not going to happen. But I got my Max, I got my Disney Plus, I got everything except for Paramount Plus and also Hulu, because Hulu, it's like it works, but then sometimes it like picks up that I'm using a VPN, or sometimes like during the ad breaks, like it'll just give me a blank screen. It says we can't give you ads or something like that. It's like for a little
Use the
while, like
VPN
YouTube.
for Disney instead.
Well, no, I use the VPN like pretty much like I downloaded it onto my device, like it's
No,
constantly.
I mean use it for Canada to Disney because then you'll get all the Hulu stuff without Hulu.
Oh,
Because we get all the Hulu stuff with our Disney Plus. So if you use
okay.
your VPN for Disney Plus Canada, then you'll get all the Hulu stuff without having to use Hulu. So that'll solve that
All
problem
right.
for you.
Well, thanks for the tip, and shout out to my listeners in the Great White North.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Canada.
So you haven't seen the Marvels yet. That's what I'm
I
gonna
have not
take
seen the
away
Marvels.
from
I
it.
have not seen the Marvels yet. I
Wow.
saw that you posted a episode that I have like consciously avoided. You claiming that it's the best Marvel movie ever, which I don't even want to know. I want to, once it's available. What I've been doing is I've been waiting until they're like available for rent on Google Play. If I can rent it on Google Play, then I will rent it and watch it. So kind of, but before it really like shows up on the streaming services, like I did that with, let's see, I did that with I think like 3 movies so far. I did it with Blue Beetle, which came out after, I think it came out mid-August. I was already out here when Blue Beetle came out in theaters. And then with John Wick 4, because I was watching all 4 John Wicks, which I had to, with my VPN, I had to change my location to Japan because I know on Netflix Japan they had John Wicks 1, 2, and 3. I was watching all 4 of them in preparation for the Continental on Peacock, and so I watched 1, 2, and 3 on Netflix Japan, and then I rented John Wick 4, best one, saw it in theaters twice.
I still haven't seen it.
IMAX. You have to. Before you can be a guest on Cobbs Corner again, like that's like a prerequisite
Okay.
for not just Khalil, but for like all my future guests. Like you have to watch all 4 John Wicks.
Fine, I'll watch the fourth one. You twist my arm.
Just Khalil.
Okay.
And everybody else, you can maybe just watch 1 or 2 or none. Yeah. The other movie I did that with was Expendables. Expendables 1, 2, and 3 are also available on Netflix Japan. So I'll literally just look up in Google like what country has so and so movie on Netflix. Like that's how I recently watched like all 3 Pitch Perfects 1, 2, and 3, because the first one's leaving Netflix USA at the end of November. Pitch Perfect 2 is on Max, and then Pitch Perfect 3 I watched on Netflix UK. I changed my location to United Kingdom. Expendables, Netflix Japan, and then Expendables 4, which I completely forgot about. That one I rented and watched on Google Play. Worst one, for sure. Yeah,
I'm
worst
still
one.
trying
And
to comprehend the fact that you don't watch movies in theaters. Sorry, it's still like going through my brain.
I mean, there's no movie theater out here. Like, I mean,
But
wait,
you're
you want me
living
to
somewhere willingly
you wanted me
without
to
movie
get on
theaters.
a plane every weekend? Like,
I'm not saying that you, or maybe every time a big movie comes out, you get on a plane. No.
I don't have the funds right now. Yes, I will be like the next time I see a movie in theaters is probably going to be at the very end of the year, last week of the year. I'll be in Guam. So any of my listeners in Guam, what's up? Hello, half a day to my listeners in Guam. Furthest island to the west, furthest point west that can still be considered U.S. soil. So yeah, I'll be going there at the end of the year, and I will hopefully see a movie in theaters. But I don't really know what's going to be in theaters then. So because we're talking like the last week of the year. So
Just go watch every movie in theaters. Just
then
spend like a day watching movies in theaters.
no, I can't. Again, I don't have the money.
Oh right, I forgot money. That's a thing.
Okay, it's
Right.
like Cobbs Corner Patreon is not up yet.
Oh, that's a good idea though. You should do that. But no, I honestly I commend you for being able to live a life where you don't have instant access to a movie theater. That does require a great deal of credit. I would have, you know, probably died multiple times at that point, but
Yeah.
good on you for surviving. Now, Superman Legacy is a movie, and now if you're here, we have to talk with DC. That's just kind of the way it works. Um, there have been a whole bunch of castings. I don't know how many of these castings you know. I'm hoping that you know a few of them.
I did
Uh,
see a few posts on social media about Superman Legacy, and that's like finally the beginning of like the new James Gunn DC extended universe. I might have seen like a few of them. I can't really think of any of the actors' names off the top of my head. But yeah, that's a movie. It's coming out in 2 years, I think, like
2025. Yeah,
early 2025. Okay, so
yeah. So Nicholas Hoult is cast as Lex Luthor in
Nicholas
this.
Holt.
Yes, Beast X-Men.
Oh, okay. Renfield,
Yeah,
got it. Yeah, yeah.
Renfield. Yes, Renfield. I don't know if that was
Right,
too recent for you, but Renfield. Yeah.
yeah, Nicholas Holt. All
What do
right,
you
I
what do you think about that
mean,
as Lex Luthor?
him as Lex Luthor.
Mhm.
To be honest, it's just I I still can only really see the god awful Jesse Eisenberg
You
as
mean
Lex
the
Luthor.
amazing Jesse Eisenberg? But okay.
Okay, I mean, I've never really liked anything he's been in. Um,
What do you mean? He's never made a bad movie before.
his portrayal of Lex Luthor was just really
Great.
he was probably one of the main issues I have with Batman versus Superman and why Batman versus Superman's not a real movie. And
It's a
I
definitely a real movie.
mean, that's not.
Not a good
Um,
movie, but it's a real one.
Suicide Squad's not a real movie.
Yeah, it is.
That's not.
It's the best movie that DC's come out with since The Dark
Neither
Knight.
is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
That I will
Again,
disagree
all
with you on.
not real movies. Toxic
Suicide
Fans,
Squad
movie.
is definitely a real movie.
The Suicide Squad, maybe, but not the first one.
No. Suicide Squad is better than the Suicide Squad.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, comment down below, please. Okay, so yeah,
Sam
Lex
Right.
Luthor. I mean, there's a portrayal of there's Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal, which was terrible. So I mean,
Agree
seeing
to
someone
disagree.
else, seeing someone else, portray Lex Luthor, who's supposed to be Superman's like main arch nemesis,
Unfortunately.
and in preparation for Superman Legacy, I feel like I have to go back and watch the Christopher Reeves Superman movies, and maybe even because I remember seeing Superman Returns back in like 2006. I think I saw it like when it came out, so I'd have to go back and like rewatch a bunch of the Superman movies. Um, but yeah, I think Nicholas Holt. I could maybe see him as Lex Luthor. Yeah, I think
Oh, well, I
that's
mean,
a
you're gonna have to see him because he's gonna be Lex Luthor. So
yeah.
you're not
What
really
I'm
gonna
saying like
choice
what
that
I'm
man.
saying I agree
Unfortunately.
with their decision to cast him. I mean, I just have a feeling he's gonna do well, just from what I've seen that he's been in, and Beast, and was he in the Theory of Everything?
And
Or am I thinking
Holt,
of
I
someone
don't
else?
think so. I don't think so. I think it's the other guy. Um, damn it, what's his name? I don't remember. But I don't know. I don't think it was him. You can
Yeah,
fact
no,
check me on that one. But
that wasn't. Probably wasn't.
um,
Um,
so the main villain of the Superman Legacy movie allegedly is the Engineer.
the engineer.
Yes, basically like Terminator esque character.
Okay.
Um, there's also 700 other villains cast for this movie, and 700 other heroes, including Hawkgirl, um, and others who I cannot recall any of off the top of my head. Is there such thing as too many characters in this movie? Oh, Green Lantern also.
Uh, oh God.
Yeah,
Again, Green Lantern also not a real movie.
that we can agree on.
I think that maybe there's a right and a wrong way to have maybe like a main hero and then also or a main hero and villain and then maybe also having some side characters who are also maybe like not like A tier or S tier villains, but they're just kind of like maybe like smaller villains. Like we've seen it work before. Like we've seen it work with Batman Begins, having the main conflict be between Bruce Wayne and Ra's al Ghul, but then they also involved Joe Chill, and Scarecrow, and like there were all these like other side villains, and then also a teaser for Joker, who's like the flagship villain for Batman, and then we saw it in Spider-Man: Homecoming, the main conflict between Spider-Man and the Vulture, but we also saw the Tinkerer and two different Shockers and Scorpion and the Prowler. Technically, we introduce the Prowler if you really want to get into like all the characters, all the Spider-Man villains that showed up in that movie. But the main focus of that movie of Spider-Man: Homecoming was Peter Parker, Spider-Man versus Adrian Toomes, the Vulture. Like that's the main conflict. So I feel like with Superman Legacy, it has to be similar. There has to be like the main conflict, hero and villain. Superman versus whether it be the Engineer or Lex Luthor, whomever, and then maybe just have some side villains as well. But they can't be 15 different main villains. There has to be one main villain that maybe everyone else is like working with, and there can't be a ton of like other characters. I mean, it's like sure in Spider-Man Homecoming we see there's Ned, and then there's MJ, and then there's also Betty Brant, who was played by Elizabeth Banks in Spider-Man 3. I just watched Spider-Man 3 yesterday, who's played by Elizabeth Banks in the Sam Raimi trilogy, who we didn't see in the Andrew Garfield movies. And so having these like side characters as well, who maybe don't do as much, but you need to have a central story. You need to have a central
Well,
story. You need to have like a central protagonist, antagonist.
I think you made a good point with Spider-Man, and you look at Homecoming specifically, right, where you had loads of characters who people are familiar with, right? You look at the first one, right? You had obviously Liz Allen, you had the Vulture, right? You had Shocker, you had um, the Prowler, right? For like 30 seconds, you had
I got
you
ice
had
cream here.
you exactly it's Scorpion. You had all these other characters. You had Iron Man, obviously. You had, um,
Oh, completely
Betty,
forgot about it.
MJ, right? Like you had all these people, but at the same time, they were all in different forms, right? They were much more tame forms, right? They weren't central characters. So I'm gonna read you right now the characters who have been officially cast in this movie. Okay, so you
All
have
right.
Hawkgirl, you have Jimmy Olsen, you have Lex Luthor, you have Superman, you have Lois Lane, you have Guy Gardner, you have Eve Teschmacher, who is like Lex Luthor's secretary person. You have the Engineer, you have Metamorpho, and you have Mister Terrific.
I was going to say, Mr. Terrific. I think I talked about on Cobbs Corner. I talked about back in like either April or May about how James Gunn planned on doing a DC movie with the character Mr. Terrific. I saw like some article on like Screen Rant or
Yeah,
Hollywood Reporter, and talking about Mr. Terrific and saying how like he's a new character who's essentially his superpower is that he's an expert at things, essentially.
very smart man. Yes,
Or yeah, that he's like a very smart man. He's a quick learner.
he's like Mister
So
Fantastic without the special stretchy stuff.
right, right. So intelligence
He's
is
like
essentially
Batman.
his superpower. I mean,
Yeah,
but
it's like smart Batman.
yeah, I think that would be an interesting.
Mm. Well,
Yeah, this Wi-Fi is just awful.
it's all good. We got you back. So, yeah. Um,
So, Mr. Terrific, I think
Mr.
that he's an interesting character. Maybe they can kind of. I just worry like maybe they shouldn't be like teasing all these future characters because this is where there's kind of like two sides of that coin. I think like
Yep.
there's the example that I gave with like Batman Begins and with Spider-Man Homecoming, but then there's two other awful examples: Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And
And
again, this
Justice
fresh
League.
from oh, and yep, and Justice League to give a DC example. Um, but yeah, it's like Spider-Man 3. It's like they spent too much time having like all these different villains. It's like we got like well for one they went back and they retconned like Flint Marko as the guy who actually killed Uncle Ben, and then now
Right.
he's like the Sandman, and it's like we're supposed to care about him, and he's like a villain with justified motives and all that. And then there's also the subplot with Peter and Harry
Venom.
Osborn. He becomes a new Green Goblin, but Venom shows up. There's a half an hour left in the movie, and they're introducing Venom. And like
Yeah.
and the fact that like Sam Raimi has even said he didn't want to put Venom in the movie, but Sony
They
Pictures
made
forced him to put Venom in the movie to set up their Venom spinoff, which never happened. And they
well, it did
like
happen. It just
announced
happened
Spider.
significantly later in time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's significantly
It
later
took
in
them
time.
like
And
3 decades.
Topher Grace is again Topher Grace hashtag not my Eddie Brock hashtag not my Venom. Dane DeHaan hashtag not my Green Goblin. I don't know why.
I don't think he's anyone's Green Goblin.
Yes, not my Green Goblin, not my Harry Osborn either. To be honest, and it's like they spent all this time trying to set up like Sinister Six and like all these, potential spinoffs and like a potential sequel. Announcing Spider-Man 4, and then Spider-Man 4 gets canceled. And they did the same thing with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. They had an entire scene of like cameos and like the Sinister Six, and they killed off
The
Gwen
head in the
Stacy.
jar.
The plan I heard was for Gwen Stacy to die in Amazing Spider-Man 2 because 2014 was the same year that the Spider-Gwen comic came out. The plan was to bring her back as Spider-Gwen in the Amazing Spider-Man 3, which never happened, and have a live-action Spider-Verse, and then also have a Sinister Six spin-off film, which also never happened. So
Thank
I
God.
just hope that with Superman Legacy, they don't fall into the trap of setting up all these potential sequels and all these potential spin-offs that you don't really know at the end of the day if these movies are going to happen. You don't know how much money this movie's going to make at the box office. Are they going to get approval for a sequel? Like, I just hope that they don't fall into that trap. That's an example of what not to do. And they have examples, Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, or Spider-Man 3,
Black
Amazing
Panther as
Spider-Man
well.
2, Justice League, um,
Black Panther
Black
as
Panther.
well. Because you
How come?
had Claw, you had Killmonger, you had M'Baku, you had T'Challa, you had um, Shuri, you had all of them in the same movie, and it all worked. It was all balanced.
But yeah, I mean that's that. Well, that's an example of like the balance of like where it's actually worked. I mean,
No,
I
I'm
was
saying
kind
it
of
worked. That was one of the examples of where it worked.
yeah, yeah, but
But so
it didn't
I think
work in Spider-Man 3 or
no, but I think you made an interesting point because I don't even think you have to go that far. Like you're kind of taking examples. I think all you have to do is go back to the movie we were talking about very at the beginning of this podcast, Batman vs Superman, right? Well, Man of Steel / Batman vs Superman, because Batman vs Superman was um, like it was a setup, right? It was a setup
well,
for
what was the setup?
everything else. Batman vs Superman was set up for Justice League, right?
Yeah. It was set up for Justice League. Well, set up for Justice League and also a teaser for Wonder Woman, which is why sometimes I don't think I've ever sat and watched that movie start to finish because on Max they have the Ultimate Edition, which is 3 hours long. Zack Snyder's really got to work on his runtime. Um, it's like at times I'm like going back to the movie. I'm thinking like, what movie am I watching? Because it's like during the final battle between Batman and Superman, and then Wonder Woman shows up. I'm like, wait, what movie is this? Huh? So yeah, that movie, like you were saying, set up for Justice League, but also set up for Wonder Woman, and set up for I don't even know what
Flash. I
else.
think Flash was in the
Oh,
alternate.
right, Flash, which was supposed to
I think
happen forever ago. Um,
yeah, and then Justice League, same thing, right? You had these new
oh, and
characters
Aquaman.
who were trying to set up other things, right? With Justice League, you had like 7 characters, plus you had all of these
Right.
other
Yeah.
setups in between. Like that doesn't work when you're starting. And when you look at right now, right, you have Guy Gardner, who's a character who has to be a major character at some point, right? We agree with that. Like
Yeah.
Guy Gardner is going to eventually be a major character in the DC universe. You have Clark Kent, who's obviously the main character of this movie, right? You have Lex Luthor, who has to be a main character at some point, right? You
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Of
Hawkgirl,
course.
who's going to probably be a main character at some point. You have the engineer, who is the main villain of this movie, right? You have Metamorpho, who is a pretty decent character and a pretty important character. And you have Mr. Terrific, who probably is going to be a main character at some point. So, and this is only, right now. We don't know what else they have, who else they have. And James Gunn, when he was talking about this, said, we want this movie to feel like, superheroes already exist in this world instead of having a bunch of origin stories. And I think there's a definite flaw to that potentially, which is, again, you can kind of just overwhelm people with this ridiculousness. And I think what you're starting to see with box office trends are the ridiculousness doesn't work anymore, right? Like people aren't really interested in the ridiculousness. Unfortunately, saw it with the Marvels, right? You saw it with the Eternals, which although
Oh,
COVID
for
was
sure.
involved in that, but you
Fell
saw it
asleep in
with
that
the
movie.
Flash, right? Like the Flash was the movie that was just ridiculous and it didn't work. It didn't connect with people. People didn't want the crazy, outlandish ridiculousness. Quantumania, right? That was another one where it didn't work. People don't want the ridiculousness. Even Doctor Strange, to some extent, it didn't work. And like
Yeah.
two, I mean, like I think that there is a concern with them if they kind of try to do this outlandish ridiculousness, which worked with the Guardians of the Galaxy and James Gunn. But I don't know if, and it works with the Suicide Squad because that's the nature of the character. But I don't know if
Mm.
that works with Superman, right? Like I don't know if you
Oh
can just
God.
have like as much as I don't like the Man of Steel version of Superman, I do have to say, like, at least Zack Snyder tried not to do the over the top ridiculousness, right? And
Right.
the kind of overstuffing. Like Man of Steel probably was the least stuffed Zack Snyder movie, right? Like
Oh, for sure. For sure.
that was the
It,
most.
it feels the least like homework. Like, and it's funny you gave the example of Eternals. I think Eternals, like COVID aside, Marvel has oversaturated the marketplace. They've like, and it,
I
it was it,
agree
it
with
was
that,
kind.
but
It was almost like it was almost like when I was hearing that potentially next year Deadpool 3 is the only Marvel movie to come out
only
next
one right
year.
now. Yeah,
Honestly, I have no complaints. I'm kind of breath of fresh air. Give everybody some time to catch up with all the content that you pumped out over the last 2 years. But Eternal specifically, I saw it in theaters opening night. That's my thing. Is like anything Marvel or DC puts out, I'm gonna do my best to see it in theaters, whether it's and they tried to establish the fact that, like you said, these superheroes already exist. It didn't feel connected to any other Marvel movie in any way. We didn't see not a single cameo from anybody.
which
Um,
sometimes is better,
you
but yeah.
know, yeah, which there's a right and a wrong way to do that. And but yeah, it just it felt like homework because you have like 10 different superheroes and only 4 of them are actually like useful and like and then really my rage quit moment was when Fastos' son called Icarus Superman. I'm like, oh god, no. Like, okay, Disney claiming all of pop culture for themselves. Just why?
I have no issues with that. But I think I don't think Marvel's oversaturating the market. I think that everything they make is quality outside of like 1 or 2 movies. However, I do understand that the box office doesn't back me up on that. And I do understand that it seems like there is a certain type of movie which people are moving away from, right? And I think, like, I just think that James Gunn has to be careful that his hubris doesn't kind of, you know, almost overwhelm his sense of logic, one movie into his DC universe, right? Because think about it, the last time that DC kind of got a little bit too ridiculous with their first movie into their universe, what was that movie called? Can you remind me?
Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's one of the examples of a movie where DC tried to start a universe. They got a little bit too excited about the ridiculousness and the hubris, and they then you got that movie you got, and you know how many movies came after that in that DC universe? Zero.
None.
That was the first
It,
and
it
last
was
one.
it was
Like,
supposed to be the kickoff to the DC the DC extended universe, but then it flopped at the box office so hard that they ended up just starting from scratch with Man of Steel.
well, they went to the Dark Knight, then
Um,
they went to Man of Steel. But yeah,
oh, right. But yeah, The Dark Knight Rises and then Man of Steel, and Screen Crush had a video about how like the Green Lantern was a necessary failure, and how if Green Lantern never failed, then we wouldn't have gotten Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, then we wouldn't have gotten like Angela Bassett as the Queen, as Queen Ramonda, and how that movie failed. But then also we had the DC extended universe, and like you said, I mean, Man of Steel is probably the least stuffed movie. Granted, Screen Crush did do another videos like scene versus scene where they explain like the one scene, like this one scene explains why Iron Man worked and why Man of Steel didn't. And for me, the rage quit moment for that the rage quit moment for me with Man of Steel was when Superman kills Zod. And
yeah,
yeah, I think that I'm just like the movie's not without its flaws, and I feel like Superman's probably not the easiest character to like start a cinematic universe off with, because Superman is not a relatable superhero. I mean, he's an alien essentially, you know, born on Krypton, raised on Earth, you know, by his adopted parents, Martha, and I forget his father's name. So raised in Smallville, Kansas, but also having to like know that he's pretty much this godlike entity, but having to suppress that his entire life. And then and Zack Snyder, like I think I talked about this when I had Lee on Cobbs Corner, how Zack Snyder, with his sort of superhero trilogy, he was able to develop Superman as a character who has that moral compass of I have the power to pretty much start humanity over, start like civilization over, and insert myself into any conflict that I want to, but I'm not gonna. I just want to live. I just want to live peacefully, and you know,
I just went to a into an internet rabbit
but I
hole.
just feel like
I
he
forgot
doesn't have.
Taika was in that movie.
Yeah, in in Green Lantern, yeah.
Yeah,
Taika Waititi, he was the best friend guy, the tech. Guy. I saw that movie one
Tom
time and I was
Kalmaku.
upset afterwards. Tom Telmaku, sounds about right. Yeah, I saw that movie one
And
time and I was upset afterwards.
I didn't realize the director is the guy who directed Casino Royale. That's just
What's his name?
sad. Martin Campbell.
Oh, Martin Campbell. Yeah, sounds familiar. If they're
He
going to
did
bring in the
Casino
Green Lantern
Royale.
to James Gunn's new
There we go.
yeah, I was I was saying how they should, like, if they're going to redo the Green Lantern, that they should maybe don't start with Guy Gardner, but I'd say start with maybe John
John
Stewart.
Stewart. Yes,
Yeah,
that's the right answer. Um, I think that. Guy Gardner is my least favorite Green Lantern. So we
Yeah, I only
actually, I
really
think
know that
they should start with Kyle Rayner. That's who they should start with.
Kyle Rayner.
Like, guy becomes the White Lantern.
Okay, yeah. Just don't make the suit
Animated.
CGI, please, please.
I
Just
mean, it has
don't.
to be some CGI because you can't make a
Yeah, but
regular glowing suit.
yeah, you can't have like a regular glowing suit, but it's like do it like the way that we've done it with other superheroes and that that's that sort of thing.
Oh my god, I'm
maybe
saying
also
something
like
super
it's a
controversial. The suit doesn't look that bad in a good Green Lantern movie. I think it's super like overhated on. It doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look that bad.
I guess. Is Hawkgirl's related to Hawkman, right? Are they
Um, kind
connected?
of depending on the lineage of mythology you want to use. Um, one version of it is that they are like long lost lovers, essentially, right? Like they were at for the beginning of time, Vandal Savage hunts them down, kills them, or whatever, and then they go to the next generation and they kind of are reincarnated, but and they always find each other. And I think there's another version where they're like brother and sister or something. Um,
Okay. So interested to
so
see
you know,
that connection since we were introduced to Hawkman and Black Adam. I would like to see. I would actually like to see Aldous Hodge back again as Hawkman. Black Adam movie aside, but like I would like to. I would like to actually see him again as Hawkman and Pierce
bring him as
Brosnan as
back
Doctor.
John Stewart. Make him John Stewart. Keep him around. Make him John Stewart.
Okay, I guess. Like, are you talking about like a recast or like are they going to
Well, I'm
reveal
just
that
saying
like
because like
he's?
James Gunn doesn't want to keep, or like he's at least said he wants to keep
Oh,
the actors
I
around, but he doesn't want to bring them back as the same character to confuse continuity. So I'm like, let's just let him be come in um
as John
as John
Stewart.
Stewart or someone like that instead.
Okay.
I was just saying John Stewart because he voiced him in the animated Green Lantern movie last year.
He voiced him. Oh, wow. Okay.
So
So
that's
yeah,
what I'm
that'd be
saying.
a
It makes
nice.
it makes sense.
Oh yeah, and then we can bring in Jensen Ackles as Batman.
Actually, hold up, hold up.
Bring in Soldier
What if
Boy,
we did? That's not a terrible idea.
Dean Winchester.
That's a better idea.
I only know him from Supernatural. I never watched The Boys.
What?
Uh, yeah,
What?
yeah,
What?
yeah,
You're
yeah.
joking.
I'm not joking. No, no. I haven't
Okay,
watched
now
The
you
Boys.
have homework.
I haven't watched
You're
The
so
Boys.
like
I've watched Gen V because I know you and Lee on Lights Camera Rant have talked about Gen V, and I've heard it's really good. And you know,
yeah, we talked about it
um,
because I said what's Gen V and I called it Gen L and Gen Z and Gen X.
Gen
I have not seen it yet. I've seen The Boys. I haven't seen Gen V. I'm a very busy person. I don't have time to watch TV.
Well, I teach full time, so yeah.
I'm a student full time, so same difference.
Oh, well, I mean, I was a student not that long ago.
I know, yeah. And so you know how busy it
But
is.
yeah, I'd say maybe the difference between like the DC
X.
God not again is
Oh,
that
there you are.
the MCU starts off with Iron Man, who is someone who technically doesn't have any superpowers, and they were able to kind of dive into sort of like the psychology behind Tony Stark and him being a billionaire playboy who then has this like change of heart. And I really like the episode of Marvel What If where he's saved by Killmonger, where he's like saved by Killmonger. It's like, what if Iron Man never got captured by the Ten Rings? What if he gets rescued? But then we see how like he never really learns those lessons. And so I really enjoyed that sort of alternate history. But I just feel like the fact that Superman is not a character that, and I kind of already talked about this, like he's a character that's not the most relatable. And I feel like he's not really somebody that people can kind of see themselves in because, and maybe it's due to the fact that he's technically an alien and that the only real flaw that he has, the only real weakness that he has is literally
He's a
kryptonite.
magical rock.
Is a magical rock from his home
Or
planet.
magic.
It's like, yeah, that's not like the most grounded in reality weakness. Not that Iron Man is entirely grounded in reality. I mean, sure, science. I mean,
Yeah.
science fiction and everything. But I just feel like the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they started it off with Iron Man, somebody who does not have any superpowers, who did not receive any super serum. He, just a
Yeah.
self-made. I guess you can make kind of
Self-made?
self-made
Not really.
in individual, but
Didn't
so
he
I
inherit
think
his entire
like
business
from the
from his
jump,
dad?
yes, but also I think from the jump, just having Superman at the start of like the DC extended universe 10 years ago, and even now with the DCU going forward, them starting with Superman Legacy, I just feel like maybe they shouldn't be starting with such a cosmic entity movie, whether if it's Superman or with the Green Lantern. It's like maybe don't start with a cosmic entity.
So
Don't like start off your cinematic universe with a cosmic entity. Maybe in my
so
opinion.
I'm gonna propose two, I guess, lines of thought here, okay? The
All right.
first one is this. DC as an entity, right, is very limited in not starting universes with cosmic entities. Do you know why? Because every DC character was initially created to be these all-powerful, basically godlike characters. Wonder Woman is literally a god, right? Superman is like a god-ish type thing, right? Green Lantern is a space cowboy pirate, probably the most relatable of all of these people, right? You have the Flash, who basically is a god or is like, again, above, everybody else. These aren't characters. You have you Raven, Starfire. Like, do I have to keep going? Like, these characters aren't necessarily
Yeah.
outside of Batman, and even Batman, we can argue, is not really a relatable figure in that sense. There's not that many options to who you're going to start with. Zatanna is obviously, not that. Hawkman, not that, right? Like, Red Tornado's an android. Martian Manhunter's literally an alien from Mars. Like, you're looking at a very small pool of characters if you wanted to start like that. The other line of thought I wanted to propose to you was you talked about the MCU and that comparison, right? Now, I think James Gunn got one thing right. He understood the MCU can't be recreated. And what I mean by that is this. The MCU started in a very unique point in time, right? It's around the time, Dark Knight trilogy, that's getting a little bit of shine. And then you get this Iron Man movie. It's just a simple movie about Iron Man, right? No one knows who Iron Man is. He's like a B, C level Avenger at this point.
Yeah.
No one knows who he is. They get this movie with this character, right? People love it. Perfect casting. Literally the perfect casting. You put the perfect casting with the perfect director, and Kevin Feige's like, let's make this movie, right? Then you go on and you kind of are able to build it up off that. You can never do that again because the public's appetite is not that where you can build up 10 years to an Avengers movie, right? Or like to a big like finale type thing, right? Um,
Sure.
Even Marvel right now, you find they're struggling to recreate their formula because they realize the public's appetite is not the slow build. They have to kind of keep building faster, right? You gotta get to the next thing faster because people, like, at the end of the day, the Avengers movie make a lot of money because people want those things. They don't want the middle parts. They want the middle parts to exist. They don't want them to actually. They don't want to watch the middle parts though, right? Like, they want you to come out with all the movies that tell you exactly what's happening, but they don't want to watch those. They want to watch the big Avengers movies, right? Like, the next Avengers movie
True.
will make like a few $1 billion, obviously. Like, that's without a doubt. And so I think the problem with DC is you can't really do that. You have to do something different. The question is this the right different?
Yeah. Definitely makes sense. Kind of going back to the Avengers. The I guess you could say Avengers Endgame, and like I remember I saw it in theaters opening night. I got the very last seat in the theater, and the Avengers Endgame is like the Super Bowl of the MCU. It's like you have all the characters, the Battle of Earth specifically. Like that's the MCU's Super Bowl. It's It's like you have all the characters from the MCU up to that point, 11 years of buildup, and it's all been culminating to this one big climactic clash, the Battle of Earth. All the characters from across the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a whole universe at that point. It's not just Earth. It's, the whole universe. Everybody,
too.
Congregating on Earth to, save humanity and to stop Thanos once and for all. That's the Super Bowl. We just won the big battle, the big, championship game, but the coaches that are, the coaches and the owners of the team that are Kevin Feige and, the officials at Disney and everything, they determined that it is too expensive to keep the quarterback, running back, linebacker, pretty much the people who helped us win the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's too expensive for us to keep them here, and their contracts are up, so we got to let them go. We got to let everybody go.
I think
everybody
they're too old to keep playing at the same
go.
high level.
And again, they're too. Yeah, that's another thing. They're too old. They're past their prime. They cannot keep winning Super Bowls. They have to retire. We have to let them go. Essentially, it's too expensive for them to stay. They'd end up costing us money if they were to stay, and
they're not worth the money because they're old.
Essentially, yeah. So
I
think that's essentially what happened.
Receiver, like a ton of money. Yeah.
That's essentially what happened with Avengers Endgame, and I think post Endgame over the last it's been 4 years. It's been 4 years since Avengers Endgame came out. There was Avengers Endgame, and then I guess you could say maybe 11 months later, the world shuts down. So 2020, absolutely no Marvel content. So we were pretty much
Black
left.
Widow.
That came out 2021.
Did it really?
Yeah, it came out 2021. I remember I saw it opening night, and so 2020, the world shuts down. There's no new content on Disney Plus, no new content in theaters. So that was kind of just when a bunch of us, like myself, we were stuck at home. We just did an entire MCU movie rewatch, start to finish, all the movies, and it's like we're just excited for like the next big thing. It's like, how do they keep the momentum going? And I just worry that between post Endgame and COVID, Disney just thought, like, let's just throw a bunch of content at them. Let's, get these shows going on Disney Plus, which I liked the first couple shows. I liked WandaVision. I was just excited to see Marvel is back, after over a year hiatus. I liked WandaVision. I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I still sit and rewatch those shows sometimes. What If season 1 was good. Loki season 1, but phenomenal. I was excited. I was excited to see Black Widow, although Black Widow was kind of a filler movie. It was kind of a movie that was, again, supposed to happen back in, it's like
10 years old.
It's one of the best movies, one of the best Marvel movies of 2014 that just came 7 years too late, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like a 10-year-old movie. Yeah.
Yeah, 10-year-old movie, time capsule. But I still think it's a movie that was good for what it was. And then although it did introduce us, I feel like it did more for the introduction of Red Guardian and Yelena.
More than anything, yeah.
Yeah, and the Red Room didn't really do a whole lot for Black Widow, who's the titular character. Anyway, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
She's dead.
Yeah, that too. So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
It's hard to make a movie about someone who's dead.
Yeah. I can. It's also like a small, minor inconvenience, I guess. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Loved it. Saw it opening night. I kind of drifted in the middle a bit during like the flashback sequences, but ending was worth it. I'd love to see Shang-Chi again. It was Simu Liu's very first movie, so did a lot for, representation. Me, I guess you could say I'm also a fan of like those of martial arts movies. Like I've seen the Ip Man movies. Haven't seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but I know there's a lot of
really?
callbacks. There's a lot of like callbacks to martial arts movies. Like I've seen
Yeah.
a few here and there. Um, so I definitely, and I like the way that they separated themselves from the problematic comics that have been retconned in later
Yeah.
years, that relied on heavily on a lot of like Asian stereotypes. But I feel like 2021, that movie definitely came out at the right time with everything going on in the world at that time. And Simu Liu is just amazing
Canadian
in that
legend.
role. Yeah, yep. Canadian legend, Brampton's own. But but yeah, I think the fact that we've got a new character, it's like now that there's the Battle of Earth and Avengers headquarters is no more. It's like, do we even know if the Avengers are a thing anymore? It's like
But
it's
they aren't a
been
thing.
4 years. Like this is the longest gap between Avengers movies. It's like
Yep.
Avengers 1 and 2, 3 year gap. 2 and 3, 3 year gap. 3 and 4, 1 year. Exactly 1 year. Exactly 52-week gap, but between movies. And it's like now 4 years later, it's like we haven't really put together an exact like team, like who's the new head honcho. I thought that maybe with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, we were going to get some sort of answer as to the post-credit scene or the mid-credit scene of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, where we see the Ten Rings and Wong says how like, oh, it went off and we like caught the signal in Kamartaj and like
I
so like
forgot about that.
exactly. It's like, he's like you completely forgot about that because like that
I
has
forgot
not
about
come
that.
up at all. Like
Yeah.
not even like because Wong shows up in She-Hulk. Like he shows up in
Yeah.
She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and like they didn't address that at all. It's like
They also had
the
another
mid-credit
Doctor Strange
scene
movie after that.
plus what was confusing for me was we saw Bruce Banner as Bruce Banner and not as Smart Hulk. So and then it's explained that he has the inhibitor, but then his inhibitor was damaged, so now he's Smart Hulk again, and that's all explained in
I
She-Hulk
forgot about
Attorney at
that
Law.
part too.
We could have gotten a Shang-Chi cameo or something. It's like they're just like dropping all these like seeds that they're just forgetting to water. I
Well,
feel like
I
so
don't think we
then
can say
they're
they're
just not going to
forgetting
grow.
them,
I
but
feel like,
I
but
think the one thing you got to give them credit for though is, or not credit, but like at least a little bit of leeway, I guess, is that their plans were kind of all torpedoed by COVID, right? Like we've done with the years,
mm,
especially between Avengers movies, right? Like how many movies were delayed, and then the strike? How many things were
and the
delayed?
strikes. Yep.
Like
Yep.
between the strikes, between COVID, like their plans have been torpedoed like 7 times. And I think we got to give them a little bit of credit for like I guess surviving it, right? And like I think they like now there's no excuses, but I think they've had a few excuses for why like the years, especially because COVID, are you gonna release an Avenger movie with COVID? Of course not. You can't, you need to make sure people actually know what's happening before you release an Avengers movie. So I do think there's a valid thing there. But what I want to do, I want to kind of expand your analogy, okay? I think what Disney and Marvel are trying to do right now is they're like, instead of paying the old guys who really can't perform for us anymore, let's just throw a bunch of rookies out there and see what they can do, right? Just a bunch of, late round pick rookies, whatever. Let's just see. Maybe one of them will be like really, really good. The problem is if you want to do that and still win games, you have to have at least one really good player. If you're talking about football, then quarterback, right? You,
Yeah.
you have to have like one amazing player to make the all the other like random stuff, or one or two amazing players make all the other random stuff work. The problem is that Marvel feels like they're just playing a bunch of rookies on a rebuilding team and they don't have two awesome players that they need to have, right? And I think they kind of tried to trade for those again, kind of using the analogy by, acquiring Fox and getting the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, right? Because you could argue that those would be two fantastic players, right? And two people who can definitely carry the rookies as they kind of try to figure their stuff out. And by carry them, I mean make money. So Marvel is okay with losing money on some of these movies. Um, Captain Marvel was someone who they were hoping would be that amazing player. Unfortunately, that didn't work with her second movie, for whatever reason. They were hoping that, maybe, um, Ant-Man would be able to be that or Doctor Strange. Neither of them really panned out like that. I think they just need the Guardians. The problem is the Guardians was that they wanted Thor to be that at one point. Thor: Love and Thunder didn't turn out to be that. Guardians 3 is probably
Mm.
the only thing that was close to that, and Guardians now is done. So I think they're kind of lacking a major player, and they're lacking someone who can really be the veteran elite player, while all these rookies try to figure it out and try to build up something that people like.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I was thinking. I remember back in 2019, like I was thinking that with the passing of Iron Man along with Captain America, I think Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, they were kind of the big three Avengers, and I think post Endgame, initially, what I thought was that the new big three was going to be like, instead of Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and instead of Captain America, Black Panther, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, and then
Black Panther would have
Thor. But
been
then,
that if it wasn't for
yeah,
Chadwick Boseman's passing.
right, right. But then the problem that I have with like the character of Thor is the fact that he's pretty much a god, and I mean, first Thor movie, it's okay. So I mean, for an origin story movie, it's all right. I
It's
mean,
not bad.
Thor: The Dark World was just no.
God awful.
And then I like how with Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi sort of starts in this sort of like Shakespearean like mold that the first two movies were in, and then just like tears it apart, and then just like tears it apart. But it was like that perfect mixture of like
Yeah.
serious, and we actually got character development for Thor and for Loki. A nice sort of like full circle moment for Loki, and also Ragnarok, and so Odin dies, and but then I feel like with Thor: Love and Thunder, Taika Waititi, he got a little bit in his own head, got in his own head a little too much, and pretty
Believes his
much
own
made
reputation.
Thor, yeah, pretty much made Thor: Love and Thunder. It's essentially a parody movie. Like it's a movie that's kind of like a parody of itself. It's like infinity cones, and I feel like there's certain movies where like those parody elements kind of work a bit more than in Thor: Love and Thunder, because in Thor: Love and Thunder, it's like we got like Stormbreaker and like the Bifrost, and there's New Asgard, and it's like now anybody can have the power of Thor, and I feel like there was just too much comedy, and the whole Jane Foster having cancer, like that just really gets pushed to the
Thrown
wayside.
in the side, yeah.
So I mean, and the fact that Thor's not immortal, but like he's a god, and it's like he can pretty much do whatever. I feel like they maybe should have like given him some sort of like exit story.
But they're scared to because he's their overpaid veteran right now, right? He's they've announced there's the rumors obviously of Thor 5, right? Which we'll talk
Oh,
about in a minute. Oh, we'll talk about that one in a minute, don't worry. But I think the other thing, just to kind of, wrap up this conversation, is we also forget, and I think we didn't mention this person's name or this character's name once this entire time, because we don't know if this person is truly a part of this universe enough where they can rely on them like this. But Spider-Man is the most profitable big name character they have right now, right? Like
yeah,
their
but
best
nobody
most
knows who he is.
the best most consistent character they have is Spider-Man, and they can't use him potentially because of Sony. And because I'll tell you what, if Spider-Man was around, you're telling me for a fact they don't have him in everything? Of course they do. They would use him as their moneymaker, right? Is Spider-Man. Spider-Man would be the Iron Man. Spider-Man would be the head and the face of the MCU. The problem is we don't know if they can actually put him in anything, and that's the issue. Because he
Yeah,
is that guy, by the way. Like he is that
right.
moneymaker.
But then my whole thing with Spider-Man is, and I think they touched on this more in Far From Home and No Way Home, is the fact that Spider-Man, at least in the comics, is a street level superhero. So I actually like their inclusion of Daredevil in Spider-Man No Way Home, because the two of them had actually crossed paths as both street level heroes in New York City. And he's just like the friendly neighborhood guy. We see in Homecoming a nice coming of age tale. he wants to do more, but he realizes that that's not his place, that's not his turf, to be this like, Avengers level superhero. Like that's just not his scene. So he has that sort of humbling, sort of coming of age story for him. And I just don't know if I can maybe if I can like see him as
After
like
Infinity
the
War, that's
new
all dead though.
Iron Man. I mean,
After Infinity War, all bets are off. He goes to space and fights an alien. I think.
yeah, I I guess, but I've heard that, and I remember after Spider-Man: Far From Home, Tom Holland's contract, his 5-movie contract
It's
in
done.
the MCU was up, and then for a
They
while we didn't know if we
renegotiated
were
it.
going to get Spider-Man: No Way Home, and I know they renegotiated. It was for like one solo film, and then for one more team up film. We still haven't gotten the team up film, and Sony has said that they plan on keeping Tom Holland in the MCU longer. I think Spider-Man 4 has been confirmed. This is the first time that we've ever gotten an
Yeah.
iteration of Spider-Man with a fourth movie. Um, I don't want to say that like the fourth movie is like the curse or anything after Thor: The Dark World or Thor: Love and Thunder, but
Well, there's so few
it may
characters who've ever gotten a fourth movie. Iron Man
it's
never got a
different.
fourth movie.
True. It's different maybe with Spider-Man because he's again like that street level hero who could actually, who's a human being. He's not a god. Maybe he can actually lead the Avengers. Who knows? I mean, but again, nobody knows who he is at this point. So
But if I did have to say something, if I had to put money on when the Spider-Man team, like I guess the Spider-Man cameo appears, if it happens, is Deadpool. Because I think if there's one way to cross something off people's bucket list, it's to put Deadpool Spider-Man on the same screen. So I would say
yes,
if I
completely
would
forgot.
be not shocked if Spider-Man shows up in Deadpool and that kind of ends that contract. I don't know what the actual terms of the contract are, off the top of my head, but or what the rumored terms are. But if there is the team up movie, then I think that you could probably put safe money on the fact that it's Deadpool, because I think if you're gonna in their minds, if you're gonna lose Spider-Man potentially, right? And obviously we know Spider-Man 4 is happening, but like whatever form that takes, Deadpool and Spider-Man need to be on the same screen, right? And I think
Yes,
that, and now maybe I don't know if TV show with the situation with their TV show rights, because technically Marvel has the animated TV rights for Spider-Man, not the live action ones.
right.
I don't
Spider-Man
know
freshman year,
which is coming out one day, probably. We don't know.
and
Is it
along
dead?
with
We
X-Men
don't know.
'97.
X-Men 97 is not dead. Spider-Man freshman year might be dead. So, um, we don't know. So I think like if I were Marvel, I would have tried to barter away the TV rights for Spider-Man in order to get the live action TV rights for him. But that's just me, because I know that Sony would want to use their Spider-Verse property more. But I mean, I think we have to you know, I think Spider-Man would be the answer to that question. I just don't know what I don't know if Spider-Man is there, right? Like where he
Yeah,
can be the answer to that question. So let's talk about Thor 5. Because Thor 5 is a movie that they've actually announced and it's actually
yeah.
coming out. So now they fired Taika Waititi. He's no longer going to be the director of this movie. I guess sorry, they moved on from him or whatever they want to say. Um Chris Hemsworth is coming back to star as Thor.
In Thor 5.
Yes. So
Okay.
what is your opinion on this?
You mean my opinion on Chris Hemsworth coming back for a fifth Thor movie and
Without
Taika
Taika.
Waititi not directing it?
That's correct.
Um, we're gonna have to kind of wait and see. I guess maybe after Thor: Love and Thunder, it's like I said, like it was too much of a parody of itself. It's too the parody elements were a little too much. It was a little too much humor, not enough like actual seriousness. Thor Ragnarok had that balance. So maybe putting someone else in the director's chair, I would say maybe having someone else direct it, but then maybe keeping Taika Waititi on as like a producer or like as one of the writers, maybe, and then maybe getting like a new set of eyes on the project to see where we can actually take this Thor story going forward. Maybe this is his last movie. Maybe he either dies or retires. Like, I just think there's nothing worse than like a 12th and 13th like sequel to like a franchise that we already know is past its prime. We already know that Thor: Love and Thunder was not as good. Like I think the Thor franchise, like it peaked at Ragnarok, and then it's
It's
just
only
kind
had
of on a
one great movie.
yeah. Like it had that one great movie, and I feel like Thor, well, at least for me, Thor Ragnarok was the reason why I was initially optimistic about Thor: Love and Thunder, to my disappointment. But maybe just have someone else as the director, and then this could be a blessing in disguise.
So I think you're completely wrong. And what I mean by that is this: you say Thor: Love and Thunder was not great. I'm not going to argue with you on that because I pretty much agree with that. I don't think it was the greatest movie. I think it was worse than Ragnarok. I think you think it was worse than Ragnarok. Have you seen Men in Black International?
No, I consciously avoided that movie.
Because you heard it was bad,
Um,
right?
well, no, only because like with that franchise particularly, I liked one and two. Nothing beats the first Men in Black. The third one I saw in theaters, and I just kept on like nodding off, and I couldn't. I just wasn't invested in that movie. Plus, by then, like Will Smith's older. Like everybody's old. You do a sequel 10 years later. It's one of those movies that like I was hoping that this is the end of the franchise. I'm hoping that they just end it right here. And then I heard that there was some Men in Black spinoff with Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. I saw one trailer for that movie. I'm like, nope, nope, goodbye. Nope.
So that movie was interesting because that movie was a case study for what you're talking about right now. And what I mean by that is this: Tessa Thompson, Chris Hemsworth happened to be the stars of Thor. Who knew? This is coming off of Ragnarok. Do you know what Sony did? Sony said, "Hey, they were funny in Ragnarok. Okay, let's hire you two." Now they forgot the missing part of that, which was of course the director. So what they said was, "Okay, we're gonna hire you two, and we're just gonna have you guys go." And you're just gonna go and you're gonna basically just improvise a bunch of stuff. Because you guys are just funny people, right? We're gonna get F. Gary. That's
F. Gary
or F.
Gray.
Gary Gray. Sorry,
F. Gary
that
Gray. Yeah,
name.
he directed Friday, Italian Job remake, Fate of the Furious.
So
He's had some pretty good movies.
he's directed stuff like Fate of the Furious, Straight Outta Compton. Now, Straight Outta Compton is
Sure.
not a very comedic movie, and Fate of the Furious is just, hey, Rock, make funny jokes, please. Like at that point, you're basically just getting the cast. You're getting Vin Diesel, Jason Statham. You're getting Dwayne Johnson to just make jokes, right? Not that hard to direct that kind of movie. Gonna be honest with you, right? Now, other than that, he hasn't done anything comedy. They gave him this movie and they said, okay, you're gonna make the action
Well,
look
Friday.
cool. Friday.
Yeah, he directed Friday.
Did he? Oh, okay.
He
Well,
start
either
he
way,
starred in it too.
that's true. Okay. Anyways,
Yeah, he's one of those
however,
guys.
however, what they did tell him to do is they said, look, go. You're gonna be. He was there primarily for the action, right? They're like, we're gonna get. We got Chris Hemsworth, we got Tessa Thompson. They've got great chemistry. They're gonna be funny, right? Just make the action look good. The problem was Chris Hemsworth can't act, and I don't know why people they don't realize this. He is a god awful actor, and I mean this with all due respect to him. I'm sure he's a wonderful person. He can't act. He was cast as Thor because he looked like Thor. He didn't get cast by Thor because he could act like Thor, right? He has been subpar at best in every Avengers movie he's been in. He's been, you know, decent. He was decent in Thor 1 and the Avengers movies. He was god awful in Thor um The Dark World. He was the only time he was amazing as Thor was in Ragnarok. And that was the only time. And then Love and Thunder, I think as much as we criticize the movie, he wasn't that bad. Like him as Thor was not that bad. I think the problem is what's the common factor there? The common factor there is that Taika Waititi was directing him. And as I lost more, okay, there you go. Did you wait? What part did you get? All that? I don't know where you cut out.
Run it back. You
Um,
were saying something
so
about like the director on Men in Black International and how it should have been. Oh, F. Gary Gray. And yeah, that's about last I heard.
yeah,
F.
so
Gary Gray
basically
and Brendan Fraser.
they told him, okay, you do the action, you know, and we'll get these two people great chemistry to kind of do the comedy stuff, right? The problem was it didn't work, and it was awful because Chris Hemsworth can't act. He's a terrible actor. He has never been great as Thor outside of two movies. I would argue the only two movies he's been really good as Thor were Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder. I think he's been good in as Thor in a lot of those other movies. I don't think Love and Thunder was a great movie. I think he was amazing as Thor. And I think the one common factor in both those movies where he is amazing as Thor is the director, right? And that's not a coincidence. There's only one person who his entire career, maybe the Russo brothers, depending on what you view his Avengers Endgame and Infinity War performance, but even then, Taika had a huge influence on that, right? There's only one director who's been able to direct him as Thor and direct him, period, right? To make him a funny person. And I think if you get rid of that, as much as you think it's bad, it's going to get a whole lot worse when Thor is like an eyesore on the screen and all you want to do is get rid of him. Like you had Kenneth Branagh direct him. Kenneth Branagh's not a bad
Mm,
director. Kenneth Branagh's a great director, right? Like a legend. And you had him direct him and he couldn't get Thor. He couldn't do Thor. He's a legend and he couldn't do Thor, right? Like,
yeah.
you know, there's something to be said about having a director who understands the main actor. And I think as much as there are people, including myself, who've had issues with Thor: Love and Thunder. If you get like the only two things that help Chris Hemsworth kind of make it a passable movie is Tom Hiddleston and Taika Waititi. So I'm going to ask you a question, okay,
Yeah.
about Thor Ragnarok, and I've asked this to a few people. So let's go through the characters in Thor, or let's go through the characters in Thor Ragnarok, okay? And we're gonna go kind of from best character to I guess worst or weakest link character, okay? Who do you think the best character in that movie was?
Best character. I want to say the Grandmaster,
Okay, who else?
probably. Yeah.
Who's next best?
Next best after him.
Hela's probably in on that list somewhere, right? I don't know if she's two for you.
Yeah,
Loki,
yeah. Maybe I guess after the Grandmaster, Hella.
Loki's on the list somewhere, I'm sure. Um, Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie.
Yeah, Valkyrie. Um, Surtur.
Korg might be on that list somewhere.
Yeah, Korg. Yeah, I say after
Hulk
Valkyrie,
was in that movie.
Surtur, Korg, Hulk, um,
Loki.
Loki, of course, Scourge. Oh no, Loki, Heimdall, Scourge.
So who's the character you haven't said yet?
Oh yeah, and then I haven't said Thor.
Right. So that's my point. Like Thor is the worst part of that movie. Now, now you go to Love and Thunder, right? What do you do in Love and Thunder? Is Loki in Love and Thunder? No.
No.
Is Hela in Love and Thunder? No. Now you do have a Christian Bale who's a decent actor. I don't think they gave him a lot to do there, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
Is Tessa Thompson in Love
that's
and
the
Thunder?
main problem I have with Thor: Love and Thunder. The fact that
They
they
didn't give the best actor.
underutilized Gore the God Butcher, who's like a
Yeah.
tier like villain, and then they just wasted him.
Yeah, like you have Hercules, you have, who's good. You have, um, Valkyrie, who's good. You have Natalie Portman, who's fine. But like you got rid of all the great supporting cast, and you just kind of gave them like good supporting cast. Like they're all good
Yeah.
actors. They're not great in their roles, but whatever, they're fine. Like you just kind of replaced all the great that surrounded him in Thor, the Thor Ragnarok, and just put a bunch of good instead. And it turns out that when you put a bunch of good instead of a bunch of great around him, you don't get great stuff. Like, what's the best part of Thor: The Dark World? Just off the top of your head, there's one character who should probably is probably on the top of that list.
Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, brightest spot in that.
Um,
Probably Loki, right?
I was gonna say Eric Selvig.
Either. I mean, I think Loki's
But yeah,
definitely up
an
there, right?
argument could be made for Loki. Sure.
What's the best part of Thor 1? I think that's probably without a doubt Loki,
Oh
but
yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know.
Yeah.
What's the best part of the Avengers?
Loki, like I've even heard, I've even watched reviews of like how like Loki's really like the secret hero of the first Thor movie, and how like it's like he's kind of seeing the origin story, kind of. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
that's one school
you
of
know,
thought.
I think he's the best part of the Avengers movie. Like the first Avengers, I think he's probably the best part of that movie. I think, um, you know, I think Loki
Oh
is
yeah,
one of the best characters in the MCU, like ever, right? I think Loki's show has
oh
been
for
the
sure.
best show of any MCU show, and show maybe it's up there. It might be up there
Of
with any
course.
superhero show. Like it might be up there with the best of the superhero shows. Like I'd
Okay.
have to actually think
I
about it
haven't watched
properly,
enough.
but I think that that's an argument that can be made, and I think you take that character away, you take away that support, like you take away that, you take away the director. Thor 5 is going to be a god awful movie if you don't have any of that. If you just kind of surround him with, even worse supporting cast, because like Natalie Portman's probably not coming back because she's kind of dead, right?
Yeah,
Like
she died.
not dead, the character's dead, right?
Well, yeah, the main
Um,
character.
you got Valkyrie back, but like we know Tessa Thompson is a good actress, but you know, like she couldn't do much without she couldn't do much without Great around her either, right? Like she's just kind of fine as Valkyrie in Love and Thunder,
Hmm.
right? She wasn't great. Um, you've got no Loki. You're not gonna have Loki. You're not gonna have um any of those characters. You're just gonna have a bunch of like maybe new cast members. Um, I don't know if you're gonna like are you gonna pull a big name villain? I don't know. Is Hercules gonna be back apparently? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Like what's left?
Yeah, but
Like
like I was also I was also wondering like how are they going to do a fifth Thor movie, because Thor's kind of in like full on, I guess, dad slash like Uncle Thor mode. Like we see him and Love pretty much like teaming up. So I feel like he's kind of in like surrogate father mode. So I just feel like how are they gonna do a fifth Thor movie? It's
well,
like
what I
he's
assume it'll be is they'll
already
be
kind
passing
of
the torch, right?
had his 4 movies, which is more than. Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like maybe we should have gotten that in the last movie, like
I agree, but I
because
think this is
everybody
the
else
direction.
literally died. Like,
Yeah. So do I tell you what I think the direction is going to be? I think this is what Marvel's looking at. I tell you, this is what's on their like dream board of like ideas, right? I think they're like, okay, Thor 5, and they have an arrow, like it's like pinned on like on a board, right? And they have an arrow, right? And the arrow is pointing to Logan, and like Thor 5, and there's an arrow to Logan. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you think Hugh Jackman's a pretty good actor?
sure, yeah,
I think he's a pretty good actor. Um, do you think Chris Hemsworth is anywhere close to as good of an actor as Hugh Jackman? Like even in the same stratosphere?
absolutely not, absolutely not.
So now, did have we seen Thor try to be dark?
Ironically, they're both Aussies.
That's true. Yeah. Have you seen Thor try to be dark?
Thor try to be
And
dark.
like like edgy, dark, whatever, right? We did.
Edgy.
We got the Dark World.
No.
The Dark World
Oh
was
yeah,
probably the edgiest we got, right?
right. Yeah, that's probably the darkest
Because
that
his mother
it's.
died, and he was all
Yeah,
edgy
and
about
even
that.
that didn't work. It's like yeah,
It worked
there was.
terribly.
Yeah, I think that's probably as dark as Thor has gotten. I feel like maybe there might have been some scenes in Love and Thunder, but then they just kind of played it off. So yeah,
But Taika was
Thor's
very
never gotten
like
dark and had it
yeah.
actually work.
right. And so if their goal, and I think it is to go to that Logan thing. They want to do the Logan, right? Because everyone wants to do their Logan send off. It's going to be a disaster. It'll be the worst thing they've done with Thor.
I, yeah, it's like it only works with certain characters. And I think that the DCEU tried to do the same thing with Man of Steel and with Batman v
Superman.
Superman and with Justice League, trying to be all gritty and dark. And oh, well, it worked with Batman. And, The Dark Knight is regarded as one of the greatest movies of the 21st century. So why don't we just copy and paste and just do that with Superman? And it didn't work. And I feel like we're going to see the same thing happen again with Thor 5 if that's where they're going. Because Logan actually works. Logan is actually, my opinion, one of the best X-Men movies, if not the best X-Men movie, if I'm being completely honest, of the Fox era. Like if we're talking just Fox era, so like X-Men 2000 up through maybe X-Men Apocalypse, which I haven't seen,
I'm
or
trying to figure who
New
played
Mutants,
Love. Do you
also
know?
haven't seen.
Do you know who played
Who?
Love? Do you know who played Love in Thor: Love and Thunder?
Oh, who played? Oh, who played Love? No, I can Google it.
I'm just looking, trying to scroll through this. But either way, the point of this is whoever played Love is not going to be able to carry a movie you know if Chris Hemsworth is struggling to be interesting, right? Which means I'm assuming then that means they have to recast Love, right? Because I'm assuming whoever played her is not playing her long term. Because again, you're gonna have to put someone who's so good that they can literally kind of carry Thor to some extent, right? Because I
Yeah.
think I don't know about you, but I think Daphne Keane did a great job carrying Hugh Jackman's certain points in that movie, right? And Charles Xavier
Oh,
did.
as like
I think,
X-23.
yeah, like I think she did
Oh,
a
for
great job,
sure.
like kind
For
of.
sure.
I think even what's his name, Professor X did a great job, kind of like picking up some of the slack too,
Charles
right?
Xavier. Oh,
Yeah, Charles
Patrick
Xavier,
Stewart.
yeah, Patrick Stewart, thank you. Um,
Yeah. Well, that and
like
also like with Logan, it was kind of like teased in the Wolverine when there's the girl from Japan who comes and finds Logan and says that she saw a vision of him dying. He was holding his heart in his hand. And then we literally see in Logan that he dies holding X-23. It wasn't literally his heart, but it was X-23, who is essentially a younger female clone of Logan.
yeah,
So he's holding a piece of himself in his hand. So I think that was almost kind of a poetic way to like sort of give him that send off. But I feel like that only works with certain characters. It depends on like how invested the audience is with the character. I'd say there's the audience element, there's the character themselves, like what's their mo. It's like we've
and the
seen
actor.
Thor try to be dark.
Mm-mm. Morgan Scott.
No, that the edgy sort of like no
Oh, there we
nonsense character. I mean, there was even his famous one line in X-Men First Class. Not gonna repeat what he said, but the fact that he's always been this character and they just hit it home with Logan, it's like that's not the case with Thor. Like Thor, sure, he's maybe a fan favorite character, but he is not this dark,
I don't think he is
tragic
though.
character. I mean, I just feel like if something works for one character doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for everybody else. Doesn't necessarily mean that that same formula can be copied and pasted time and time again. And
Yep.
like this is where the box office numbers start to dwindle. This is where fans get annoyed. This is where
Mm-hmm.
it's Marvel will be shooting themselves in the foot if they do this with Thor 5.
Yep.
I'm so hoping I'm wrong, but yeah.
So now, with all this being said, would you not feel more comfortable if they brought Taika back to direct it? Like now, looking back at what we've talked about, do you not think, hey, having Taika back, maybe that might be best, even if it's not a great movie? It's going to be. We know what Thor without Taika is, and we know what Thor with Taika is, and I'd much rather the Thor with Taika because those two movies are far better than anything else Thor.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think maybe in that rationale, yeah, bring back Taika.
Like,
I would say.
I think that's the thing, and I think Marvel probably didn't game plan this enough to know. Like I think they kind of, I think in Marvel's mind, those first two Thor movies never happened, right? And they're kind of giving him a new trilogy, right?
Yeah,
Done better. I think,
maybe.
and I also think like I do think there is, like I think this is the weird situation Marvel's in, right? So we've seen the situation where, and I like Iron Man as this example, but because Iron Man, you had the same director, John Favreau, for the first two movies, right?
Yep.
The second Iron Man movie, well, we know how that one went.
Okay, for what it was.
Um, and then they were like, Favreau, you've done your time, good job. We're gonna replace you, right? Avengers did the same thing, right? Two Avengers movies, Joss Whedon. They're like,
That's what.
Age of Ultron, yeah, we can do better than this. And they
Again,
replaced
okay for what it was.
it was good, but like, it's like, okay, well, we expect better from the
It's
Avengers
not
movie,
Infinity
right?
War.
Right. I think the problem is this. Thor 4 was simply the second movie, right? Because every time you do the second movie, it's almost like when the same director does the second movie in a trilogy, it's almost always worse, right?
Mm.
Like that's just how it is. It's very very rare where the second movie is better than the first movie generally, and especially not in the case of same director, right? I think you look at Captain America being an exception because the director changed from first to one to two.
Oh
Um,
yeah, Star Wars as
and,
well. George Lucas didn't direct Empire Strikes Back
right,
for other reasons.
yeah, and then I obviously I think you look at Civil War, and I think you do see a downturn. Why do you see a downturn? Because that was their second movie, right? Even though it was the third movie,
Yep,
it was
yep.
the Russo brothers' second movie. Not as great as the Winter Soldier. I don't think anyone would say that.
Oh,
Um,
for sure. Yeah. Winter
but
Soldier is one of the best MCU movies. Top
yeah,
five forever.
but then I mean, the Russo brothers did a pretty good job rebounding with the Infinity War. Don't you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
For sure, for sure. That was
then,
their Avengers film debut. But
yeah,
then
and then Endgame
but then
a little bit.
Endgame. Well, I've always said that Endgame's not as good as Infinity War. It's
Yeah,
not as
you're right.
impactful.
It
Um,
drops,
it drops. Like it's still a good movie. It's
of
not a 10 out of
course.
10.
It's
Not a
like,
10 out of 10.
probably middle of the pack for Marvel movies. So it's like, I think that I think if you give some of these people a second chance, right? Like if you give Taika a second chance to make, I guess not the second Thor movie, but the third Thor movie, right? Even though it's technically the fifth, I think that kind of like you're gonna see better results. This is how it works, right? I think they move off directors too quickly sometimes. And I think sometimes they stick to like I think Ant-Man might be the counterexample to this, right? Where you stuck with Peyton Reed for the entirety of the trilogy and it just gotten worse and worse and worse, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So, there is that side of it, right? So maybe I just think the problem is all these characters we talk about, we saw them with the director and then we saw them without the director. We've seen the both Thor with the director who works and without the director who works. I'm telling you, I like the Taika Thors more than I like because even though you Love and Thunder is a joke and a parody in a lot of ways, my God, it's so much better to watch than the Dark World.
I couldn't agree more. Again, toxic fandom. Thor: The Dark World's not a real movie.
Like I don't know. I think
I
when you
wouldn't go so
have
far as to
the
say that. I
director,
think the only Marvel movie
uh-oh. I don't know if Cobb is still there. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Were
Thor
you gonna
is
say
not a real
something?
movie.
Thor. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been fun talking with
Yes.
you, Khalil. But
I will let you go now because the Wi-Fi does not want us to continue this conversation.
yes, the Wi-Fi does not
Um,
want us to continue. I have to teach tomorrow, so
you should sleep.
but
Yes.
yes, yes, and you should also sleep as well.
6:25 in the morning.
But
It's wake up. It's wake up time now.
yeah, all
And
right.
9 o'clock class, so I have to be awake anyways. It's fine. Um, thank you for coming on and talking
Always a
with
pleasure.
me. Everyone needs to go check you out at Cobbs. I don't know what's your YouTube called. Is it called Cobbs Corner Podcast? Or
YouTube is Cobb's Corner Podcast. I think Cobb Space Corner Space Podcast. We
podcast?
are
Yeah.
113 subscribers and counting. So let's keep that number
Woo!
going up. I appreciate all of you. Follow the Instagram. We've got, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I want to say it's over 130 followers on Instagram. So Cobbs underscore corner underscore podcast. That's on Instagram and on Threads. Check out the
132.
Threads. We are we are starting to post more on Threads and engage with you guys, engage with not just listeners of Cobb's Corner, but also listeners of Comic Boys podcast, and with Star Wars and Nerd Dose and Lights Camera Rant, Two Black Nerds, and starting to kind of connect with the other podcasters. So check us out on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, all lowercase. Cobb's Corner podcast, all lowercase, no spaces. Cobb's Corner podcast on TikTok, but as long as you're following us on Instagram and TikTok, so you can
The
keep
Instagram
up
will
to
be in
date
the description anyways.
with.
Um,
Yep,
so
and
you can
Instagram will
find
be
it
in the
there
description.
if you're listening to podcast apps or you're
You can
watching on
also email
YouTube.
me, cobbscornerpodcast@gmail.com, with your suggestions, content suggestions, and business inquiries. And if you want to be a guest on Cobb's Corner, or you want me to be a guest on your podcast, cobbscornerpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. I'll email you next time I want you on as a guest on my podcast.
yes, of
Um,
course.
but yeah, no, everyone go check him out. You do great stuff. And we all wish we were more like you, but alas, there's only one of you. So, and everyone, thank you for listening. If you got to the end of this episode, shout out to you for doing that because I know that can be a slog.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I don't know what else to say. Subscribe, like, comment, follow us on all. We have like 700 different podcasts going now on like 7 different platforms.
I was gonna
We have
say.
like we have 2 podcast feeds now. We've got like 3 podcasts on this feed. We're doing shorts now too, and then some medium content.
You
I
interviewed
don't
Joe
know
Quesada.
what. Hmm? Hmm? Did I miss that? Oh. Uh-oh.
All right.
Wait, did you say something? I missed that.
Yeah, I said
It cut.
you interviewed Joe Quesada, didn't you?
I did. Yes, I did. He's awesome. We talked about the MCU. I gave him all my theories, and he told me if I was right or wrong. I was right
There you go.
often, but yeah, that's a great interview. You should check that one out. Everyone, we do great stuff here. We do so much stuff. Uh, yeah, as you know. So with that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.